The boy stared at the test paper as if it were written in a foreign language. Around him, other students scribbled confidently, pens racing against time. When the bell rang, he didn't move. He just sat there, frozen, knowing the truth he had tried to hide for years would follow him again. This is not a story about money, or power, or privilege. This is a story about a secret so simple it changed a broken boy's life forever. And before we begin, if stories that touch your heart and remind you what really matters mean something to you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more stories like this with people who need them. Everyone knew Ethan Blackwell as the billionaire's son. His father, Richard Blackwell, was one of the richest men in the city, a self-made tycoon whose name was etched on skyscrapers and hospital wings. Teachers expected brilliance from Ethan. Classmates expected arrogance, but what they got was confusion. Ethan failed math, failed science, failed history. Again and again, report cards came home soaked in red ink, and each one landed on his father's desk like a personal insult. At home, silence was louder than shouting. Richard didn't yell, he didn't punish, he simply looked at his son with disappointment so heavy it pressed the air out of the room. Tutors were hired, the best ones, private schools, specialized programs. Nothing worked. Ethan tried to focus, tried to memorize, tried to be the son his father wanted, but the words slipped away from him like water through open fingers. He started believing what the whispers said, that he was stupid, that he was a failure living on borrowed success. School became a place of quiet humiliation. Other kids teased him behind his back. Some openly mocked him, saying money couldn't buy brains. Teachers stopped calling on him. They assumed he didn't know the answers anyway. Ethan learned how to disappear in plain sight, shrinking into his chair, counting minutes until the final bell rang. Every afternoon, while waiting for his driver, Ethan sat near the back exit of the school. That's where he first noticed Daniel. The janitor, middle-aged, worn boots, faded uniform, always pushing the same squeaky cleaning cart. Daniel worked quietly, humming old songs under his breath. He had kind eyes, the sort that noticed things without making a big deal of them. One afternoon, Ethan dropped his notebook. Papers scattered across the floor. While others walked past, Daniel stopped and helped gather them. He glanced at the pages filled with crossed-out answers and sighed, not in judgment, but recognition. "Tough day?" Daniel asked. Ethan shrugged. "Every day." Daniel nodded as if that made perfect sense. "You know," he said gently, "failing tests doesn't mean you're failing at learning." Ethan looked at him, confused. No adult had ever said that to him before. Over the next few weeks, small conversations turned into quiet companionship. Daniel would clean nearby while Ethan waited for his ride. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. One day, Ethan admitted the truth he never said out loud. "I study all the time. I just don't get it. Everyone thinks I'm dumb." Daniel leaned against his cart. "My son used to think the same thing about himself." Ethan's ears perked up. Daniel rarely spoke about his personal life. He struggled in school, Daniel continued. Teachers gave up on him. But he wasn't dumb, he just learned differently. That word stuck. Differently. The next day, Daniel brought something unexpected. A small notebook filled with drawings, diagrams, and handwritten notes. "This is how I helped my son," he said. "I taught him one secret." Ethan frowned. "One secret?" Daniel smiled. "Stop trying to learn the way. Everyone tells you to. Learn the way your mind actually works." They started meeting after school. Not tutoring, not lessons, just conversations. Daniel explained math using real-life examples. Cleaning schedules became fractions. Floor plans turned into geometry. History became stories about people, not dates to memorize. Daniel asked Ethan questions, encouraged him to explain things back in his own words. For the first time, learning felt human. At home, nothing changed. Richard remained distant, buried in meetings and expectations. Ethan didn't tell him about Daniel. Part of him was afraid. Afraid his father would dismiss it. Or worse, take it away. Weeks passed, then months. A midterm exam came. Ethan's hands shook as he filled in answers, but something was different. He understood what he was writing. When the results came back, he stared at the paper in disbelief. He hadn't just passed, he'd done well. Teachers were shocked. Some accused him of cheating. Others suddenly paid attention. Ethan wanted to run to Daniel and tell him everything. But life has a way of testing progress. One afternoon, Ethan arrived at school to find Daniel's cart gone. Another janitor cleaned the halls. Panic crept in. After school, the principal called Ethan into the office. His father was there. Richard's voice was cold. "I found out you've been spending time with a janitor instead of your tutors." Ethan's heart sank. "He was helping me. This is unacceptable," Richard snapped. "I pay for the best education money can buy. I won't have my son wasting time." Daniel was let go that same day. No goodbye. Ethan spiraled. Old fears returned. Tests felt harder. Confidence faded. At home, arguments replaced silence. Finally, after another failed quiz, Ethan broke. He shouted words he'd buried for years. "I'm not you, and I never will be." Richard froze. He had never heard his son raise his voice. That night, Ethan did something bold. He went to find Daniel. The small apartment was modest, filled with children's drawings and old books. Daniel looked surprised but not upset. "I thought you forgot the secret," Daniel said softly. Ethan shook his head. "I can't do this without you." Daniel smiled. "You already can. The secret was never me. It was believing you're not broken." The next day, Ethan stood in front of his class during a presentation. He explained concepts in his own way. Clear, confident, alive. The room was silent, then applause. When Richard attended the next parent meeting, he heard something he never expected. Praise. Later that night, he sat with his son. Really sat. He listened. For the first time, Richard saw past his own expectations and saw a boy desperate to be understood. He found Daniel. He apologized. Not just with words, but with gratitude. Years later, Ethan would stand on a stage, not as a billionaire's shadow, but as himself. He spoke about learning, about failure, about a janitor who taught him one secret that no money could buy. Sometimes, the most valuable lessons don't come from power or prestige, but from someone who takes the time to see you. If this story moved you, reminded you of someone who believed in you, or inspired you to see yourself differently, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. You never know who might need to hear the next story.